Yes, I can do that. So today I'm joined by my guests, Phillip Tanzer, Chris Mad Cat Votey, and Addy Agame, to discuss corrupt woke political agendas in Western nations. Western societies implement gynocentrism in their political systems. A feminine primary societal order favors the female evolutionary sexual strategy. We see a culture of obesity, body fat acceptance, and a culture that refuses to recognize the glaring biological and psychological differences between the sexes, and instead does this with overtly emotional mental gymnastics about female personal worth and language and thought policing. A feminine social structure is founded on ensuring the most undeserving women, by virtue of being women, are entitled to and assured of the best options by conditioning men to comply with what they dictate. The so called power struggle feminists claim to be engaged in with men has already been settled in their favor. For example, fathers have limited rights to see their children after a breakup. Men pay half of their worth during most divorces, even though women initiate the majority of divorces. Child support is mandatory, even if the man doesn't want to have a child. Men get no say in abortions. If a man reports domestic violence or assault or sexual assault by women, he is ridiculed or not believed. Feminism and social justice communists have been around for decades, probably a century or so. The woke left have been establishing social orders to facilitate the wacky ideas collectively for a considerable amount of time in educational institutions and in professional, political, and legal fields. This was accelerated in the 60s when birth control was invented, and more in recent history with the explosion of social media and dating apps. This is literally the basis of our current social order. Um, so just after finishing that, I want to ask you guys a couple of questions. Philip, you are originally from Germany. What is your take on Angela Merkel from a MRA standpoint?
I have to say, in regards to a female leader, she is better than most. She has an academic background, and I'm not a fan of Angela Merkel, but she has a focus on academic method, and she does look at evidence and data. Like almost every woman, she has an in-group bias and focuses on women's issues more than on men's issues, but it's definitely not as bad
Yeah.
as, for example, Nicola Sturgeon and some others.
Mhm. Okay, good point. Good point. Chris, you're from the States. How would you feel about the new President Joe Biden and his background? Questionable election victory and politics.
Well, pushing the questionable election aside, I mean, even before he took office, even before he became vice president, he was trouble. He is responsible for
Yeah.
the Violence Against
Hmm.
Women's Act, which was a bill that was passed that basically genderized domestic violence. And before that, this violence period was against the law, but they made a special crime that was females only, female specific, gynocentric crimes, basically, which are things that we also see in Mexico and Brazil, I believe. But Biden has gone on record of saying that he doesn't care about men, that his primary focus is on women, and recently started up the
Yeah.
gender committee where it's just basically
Hmm.
all women and women of race. So it's probably a mixture of white and black women, but it's only women, and they will decide the policies of gender throughout the United States, which is probably going to make us look a lot more like Canada.
Okay. So So, Addy, you are originally from Scotland, and you've had personal dealings with the First Minister, Sturgeon, in reference to your media scandal. What are your thoughts on her?
We can't hear you, Addy. Addy? While we're waiting for him, can I say something else about Angela Merkel, which I forgot to say?
Of course, yes.
Um,
Of course.
So one thing that just came to my mind, she put women into positions of power, especially in the military. So we had two ministers of defense that are women, and they actually completed. I would say they completely destroyed the military in Germany, and one of them is now the leader of the EU, von der Leyen, and they were pretty much, yeah, like Angela Merkel's little female servants that she put into positions of power. So in regards to that, I would say she supported a sisterhood that undermined important male areas like the military.
I have a question about Merkel. I'm wondering, was she the one who came up with the "Don't Rape Me" bracelets?
Not that I'm aware of, no. I
It
could
was
be
either
wrong, but
her or
I never heard about that, and it doesn't sound like something she would do. But I could be wrong.
Yeah, I never heard about that either. Can you guys hear me now? Right, great. Going back to your question regarding Nicola Sturgeon and about my involvement with her, I think she belongs to the religion of social justice and feminism, Twitter style, and has feminist values that are based on emotionalism, fake depression, and not on scientific or historical facts. I don't feel she is a competent leader. Scottish law is ridiculed elsewhere in the West. Our politicians should be screened to see if they are objective and neutral before they are selected. And if they are found to later develop SJW views, they should be removed from their position. That doesn't happen in Scotland. She has made cancel culture into criminal law in Scotland. It's not safe in Scotland to speak your mind unless you are saying what the SNP's script dictates. And that's not freedom at all. I'm not in a position where I feel safe talking from speaking freely in Scotland. Nicola Sturgeon has taken her warped values and turned possible civil law cases into criminal law. For example, in Scotland, if someone was to make a battle rap song against another rapper, I'm just talking for argument's sake, in the style of, say, 8 Mile starring Eminem, and a complaint was made by the other person, there is a high probability of a prosecution, and that's not justice, that's progressive woke madness. Men becoming more independent, selective, and waking up to contradictions and hypocrisies in the social justice feminist narrative doesn't fit her agenda. She's not exactly physically attractive. I'm not trying to be nasty here. She emulates a man in her appearance and demeanor. She's not feminine. She wants to control men and women to be batteries in her system. She needs men to stay dumbed down and to push her agenda further. And she is creating fake oppression and fighting freedom of speech, disguising it as hate crimes and faux pas misogyny, which hardly exists in Scotland. Women in Scotland are not oppressed. The First Minister is a woman. There is no oppressive patriarchy. If there was, there would be no cancel culture, there would be no feminism, there would be no Nicola Sturgeon. The media wouldn't be able to gaslight and dox men like they do. So in my situation, Bob Doris even apologised to Nicola Sturgeon for being white. and for being a man before he even spoke. And that's the type of subservient, spineless men she wants to create to serve her, in my opinion. It's horrible for young Scottish boys. It's horrible for boys in the West. And there's nothing shameful about being white. There's nothing shameful about being a man. It's crazy.
Nicola Sturgeon said very early on that, and that's a quote, quote, that she will put women's issues at the center of all political decisions that she and the SNP will make. So that's she actually said that.
Yeah.
And I've been following her career up quite a bit, and she said at several points that she focuses on women and that she cares about women, and actively excluding men. We created in Scotland a bill where coercive control became part of the definition of domestic abuse. And the Scottish police actually put a lot of effort into making it gender neutral. And then Sturgeon came out and said, finally, we have a law that protects women from men.
Yeah. Look, it's crazy. I remember Madcat actually in a different conversation reminded me of an incident that happened in Scotland. I can't remember what the incident was, but it was quite shocking. It was to do with some sort of restriction and ban. I think it was to do with Father's Day or Mother's Day, something like that. And it was a conversation that we had offline. And Chris told me about there was some sort of progressive wokeism BS going on with that. It was a few years ago. I don't know if you want to digress on that, Chris. What the situation was in specifically.
Oh, just give me one quick second. Let me see if I can find the article. I have a database of articles for my upcoming book, so I got like 8,000 to look through. But just give me one quick second.
Well, in the meantime,
by the way, Chris. Oh, by the way, Chris, I looked it up, and the "Don't Rape Me" bracelet apparently was in Sweden, not in Germany.
There you go. Phillip on point. Look, I had other SNP members like Rhiannon Spear, who got involved with my media scandal, making ridiculous claims of rape culture. In my case, when I was teaching guys how to be more confident and to have success with women, and I faced no such charges. If I had called Rhiannon Spear a rapist, I could face possible arrest in Scotland. I had other SNP members that chimed in for some much needed limelight or 15 minutes of fame, like Alison Thewlis. She was known for clashing with black female politicians and white Scottish female celebrities, despite her BLM feminism virtue signalling. I had a guy called Damien Collins that was another one who saw it as a chance to get some shine, and he's had various claims of fraudulent defrauding funds and fraudulent actions. I had SNP MSP Sandra White come at me. I had Labour MSP Pauline McNeill and Tory MSP Annie Wells come at me. They did the same, and all of these people have had their own media controversies and faced near suspension and actions for misconduct. Yet they shamelessly chase publicity on social media via my case, and they're all charlatans. Even the SNP guy Hamza Yusuf, that is quite adamant about his hatred for white people. Now, I'm not a white person, but I can be objective and see where someone is being unfair despite their race. You don't get a free pass because you have a certain colour of skin. Where was Hamza Yusuf when I was being stereotyped by his buddies in the SNP and the leftist media? He was nowhere to be seen. These people don't care about you because of your race. They only care if you are on board with their narrative. And additional to that, Sturgeon is a prime example of hypocrisy. She had a comment she made in a video about she supports BLM, as did the BBC. However, during the whole BLM madness in 2020, a black man was shot dead by police in Park Inn Hotel in Glasgow. He had no knife. He had no gun. He had a knife. He had no gun. He wasn't an Islamist extremist. There was no bomb threat. He could have been tasered and brought to justice. Police Scotland shot him dead. They killed him. And the SNP and the BBC and the Scottish media swept it under the carpet, smack bang in the middle of the BLM uproar. I don't agree with BLM. I don't align myself with BLM because they are also a woke, feminist, leftist SJW movement that have warped liberal values, in my opinion. But the SNP and Sturgeon don't care about black or white people. They do their virtue signalling to stay ahead in the political popularity contest in order to continue with their stranglehold.
Well, they care about power. It's the same with feminism. They don't care about women. They care about power. I'm pretty sure that Chris has found his information. He looks like he found the information he was looking for.
Yeah.
Yes, I did. And this was actually an article back in 2008. And it was basically that a Scottish school banned making Father's Day cards. I guess you have schooling during the summer, what we consider summertime. And, you know, when it's Mother's Day, you get a piece of paper, fold it in half, write a Mother's Day card. But they decided not to make Father's Day cards because there were many children who lived in a mother-only home or had lesbian parents. So they didn't want to embarrass the children that they didn't have a father, so they did away with it altogether. And this is something that's also been seen in Australia, and some places in the United States have started basically banning Father's Day cards or celebrating Father's Day in schools.
That's nuts.
That is crazy. Just another question for Philip. You are the closest thing we have to a European member of this panel. What are your thoughts on Ursula von der Leyen and Emmanuel Macron?
So Ursula von der Leyen, she, as I said, she was the Minister of Defense in Germany, and she did an absolute horrible job. Before that, and I don't want to get it wrong. As far as I know, as far as I remember, she was the Minister for Families before that in Germany, and she has a lot of children. Maybe one of you could Google that real quick. Ursula von der Leyen, how many children she has? I think she has something like 5 or 6 children. So being Minister for Families was actually a good match. But then she went on to be the Minister of Defense, and she completely restructured the military to be women-friendly, family-friendly, and she took the military out of the military, so to speak. And I think she is incompetent. I think she is potentially dangerous in her incompetence, and she is part of the European power structure. When I was still living in Germany, I was not aware of how evil the EU really was. Now I am. It's difficult to say because I would say that the EU is a little bit like Hydra. In the Marvel comics, it has several heads, and it's hard to say how they interact with each other and who has which interests. And because I think there is a economic part and there is an ideological part, and the ideological part is very feminist infused, I would say. I'm not sure if she's part of that. She might be more of the economic part. In regards to Emmanuel Macron, yeah, he's a weird character. He seems to be a little bit all over the place with his positions. As far as I can tell, he recently came out against Islamism, and he strongly criticized the teachings of critical race theory and wokeness in university in France. Now, the funny thing is that he said that these new teachings of critical race theory are coming from America, but originally they came from France. So originally they came from intellectuals like Foucault and other people that started with postmodernism. That was then sent over to America. It went absolutely berserk in America, and now it's coming back to France. So it's a little bit funny that the French are starting to fight against that or calling it out. That's all I have to say to Macron and Merkel and von der Leyen. I think they are all corrupt and need to be taken down.
An interesting point that I found. She has 7 children. I didn't know how to spell her name, so I had to look up the Federal Ministry of Family Affairs. And what I find interesting is that since it's been in existence in 1953, there have only been 3 men in that position. And the last man in that position was back in 1985.
Yes, and we see something very similar, for example, in regards to equalities ministers here in the UK. You will almost never find a man in certain positions that are about equality or that are about family issues. You will almost exclusively find women. Maybe you find a gay man sometimes in certain equalities position, but you will never find a straight man.
I feel that Macron is the typical male feminist. He's very virtue signalling and quite spineless, but he's doing what he does. He's what any politician does. He's trying to get the vote, and he's going with the whole social justice narrative. Ursula, don't know how to say her full name, von der Leyen. She seems kind of fair, but I'm comparing her to Nicola Sturgeon. So Nicola Sturgeon is on the extreme level. She's like a well-indoctrinated feminist that believes in SJW religious values. It is a religion to her, and that comparison isn't fair to another female. But from what Phillip was saying, Merkel and von der Leyen aren't as extreme as Sturgeon. Maybe because Sturgeon's in the UK, maybe because she's in Scotland, but they still seem very unfair. They have blind faith in a baseless false theory, and that's dangerous. They viciously attack, in Scotland at least, they viciously attack anyone who dares expose the inconsistencies and falsehoods in that faith. Just like, and no disrespect to this faith, just like Muslims do. If someone was to draw a cartoon of Muhammad and Muslims go crazy about it, if you were to say something against feminism, the woke mob go nuts. In Scotland, we're experiencing, like I said, criminal legislation that better facilitates social justice values and thought and language policing rather than actual law. Like, for instance, if men are aroused by slim women, I'm disregarding like fetishes and the LGBT crowd. No disrespect once again. But men who are straight, like slim women, they're shamed for this by the body positivity feminist movement, and the same obese women adamantly expect all men to find them attractive for who they are, in inverted commas, but expect men to be in flawless shape. The same applies to older women who have hit the wall, for lack of a better term, in the manosphere, and single mothers. The fact is, obesity is a major cause for heart disease and cancer and diabetes, and this is overlooked by these politicians, and that's what's dangerous. And any man saying this or saying no or being selective is labelled as a misogynist or as a pervert or at worst a rapist. It's crazy that I'm not saying that women shouldn't be in power. It's just that it's very dangerous when we adhere to social justice rather than actual law and common sense.
I can make. Oh, sorry, Chris. Yeah.
I just want to comment real quickly. I mean, there's a lot of things you said that was really good, but I'll focus just on the obesity issue where I actually have an image from, I believe, the University of Michigan, where they put into their doctrine about rape, and they gave a list of all of the ways that you can rape a woman. But one of the things they listed was refusing to have sex with her. Now, within a short time, they quickly changed that, but I do have the image of it. But what's interesting about obese women, for the most part in America, I can't speak anywhere else in the world, is there's this expectation that you have to be attracted to them, and if you're not, you're sexist. But they are not attracted to fatter, bigger men, to obese men. You even see this on dating profiles where they'll say, I'm a BBW, but you have to have a six-pack. And I just find that so funny.
I can say something about the difference between German women and British women, because I moved to Scotland 8 years ago. And that also ties in a little bit with the difference between Nicola Sturgeon and... No, it doesn't, but I will get to that as well. So since I moved to Scotland, I have been sexually assaulted by women 8 times, roughly. And I don't go out a lot. So, but pretty much every time I go to a party or a dance here in Scotland, almost every time I'm being groped or in some way, shape or form, physically, sexually assaulted. If we use the same standard that we use on women, so if a guy would touch a woman on the boob, that's sexual assault. If a woman touches me on my ass or on my crotch, to me, that's sexual assault. That happens all the time in Scotland. And I would say that women in Scotland are sexually very, very aggressive. You could call them liberated. And I find it quite shocking that, especially here in Scotland, there is this narrative from Nicola Sturgeon that men are the perpetrators and women are the innocent victims, because from my perspective, moving to Scotland, that's absolutely not the case. There is definitely gender equity in regards to sexual assault here. Now, going back real quick to Angela Merkel, von der Leyen, and Nicola Sturgeon, I have to point out that Angela Merkel and von der Leyen, they are representatives of the Conservative Party, where Nicola Sturgeon is SNP, which is very, very left-leaning, and I think that makes a huge difference. You will find feminists in the Conservative parties, but they're usually not as radical. They have some deep-rooted feminist beliefs, but they will not be as outspoken because it's not as accepted in their parties. Sorry for that long monologue.
So a question for Chris. The USA borders Canada. How do you feel about their leader, Justin Trudeau?
I honestly feel like Justin Trudeau was a precursor to Biden. They certainly do their elections differently there. I think it's similar to what the UK does. I don't really understand all of that, but they basically chose a male feminist who, the guy doesn't even spread his legs when he sits down, which is a very natural thing that men want to do. He keeps them closed all the time. He has really gone out of his way to appeal to feminists. Even when they attack him, he will still back them up. And like I said, I think he was a precursor to Biden because that's basically what Biden is going to do. But I do find it a little funny that Biden pissed Trudeau off when he canceled the pipeline, because that was big money for both the United States and for Canada. But canceling that pipeline, well, Biden's still going to make a lot of money on it, but Trudeau isn't. I hope Trudeau comes out of office. I don't know if he's going to stay in that position for the rest of his life, or is there an election coming up, but I hope some way, somehow, he's going to get out of it. But if I'm right, it's the politicians who elect their prime minister, So hopefully they can get some new politicians, but it's probably just going to be cronyism at this point.
Yeah, I heard something about Trudeau. I think it was through Janice Fiamingo and uh, Steve Brule. It was to do with the laws regarding I don't know how they define it in Canada, but it would be in the UK they define it if you were not married to a female but you were living with her, you were liable in some sort of way to pay alimony or child support just because you were living with her. I can't remember the terminology they use in the UK for that, but it's as if you are married to her. And there was a guy that had either it was to do with he didn't father the children, and he didn't live with the female, but they really slammed the guy for just having relations with a woman over a prolonged period of time when they weren't married, and he had to pay for her support and whatever needs she had as if they were married. And that really baffled me because Scotland's quite harsh. It's harsh in comparison to England. But Canada, in that context, seemed to take the cake, and it really is a dangerous paradox. And it made me lose confidence in Trudeau totally, more so than even Macron. It was a really unnerving situation, to say the least.
Just another question for Addy there. Just in regards to yourself, since you've lived in the UK for most of your life, uh, would you make what do you make of the current Prime Minister Boris Johnson?
I mean, Boris is the image of like a bumbling idiot, if you like. And I'm not having a pop at him. It's just the way he comes across. But he seems to be a little bit clued up. I mean, he has a younger girlfriend that's quite attractive for his standards, and I mean, people could see his comments about Muslim women looking like letterboxes or black people having watermelon smiles were racist. I don't think they were. I thought they were in good humor, and I say that as a person of color. I felt I thought that was funny. Um, I would back him more than I would Nicola Sturgeon. He plays his part. He's not a great leader. He's not like Trump. I'm not saying Trump was a great leader. I'm just saying that he's not like dynamic and bold in that manner. He's better than Sturgeon. But it's like when imagine you were given a choice between herpes and HIV. You know what I mean? You would choose herpes, but it's still not good. So I would say that's the only reason I would favour Boris. Recently in Scotland, I've seen some billboards up, and Boris probably doesn't even know about this. It was a billboard showing a picture of Trump saying recount the votes, and then Boris saying something along the lines of there'll be no referendum for independence in Scotland. And they're saying, and they quote the SNP or whoever put that advert out it was most likely the SNP. There will be no referendum. And that comes down to propaganda. Now, he doesn't even know about it. I don't see Trump as a bad person. I don't think he lost the election. But the fact that the SNP are allowed to promote Boris in that negative context, saying he's cut from the same cloth as Trump, in order to make the majority of the public who already see Trump as a bad guy, see Boris as a bad guy, in order for the SNP and Nicola Sturgeon to be independent. I think that's corrupt. And Boris probably doesn't even know any better. But the fact that Scotland has so many silly cancel culture type of laws and freedom of speech restrictive laws, it's a bit hypocritical for them to demonize Boris in that way. But I'm not a big fan of Boris Johnson. I just feel like he's just another guy that stands up and just appeases the people that are following him and plays up to the popularity contest.
Well, I want to comment on something about the current state of politics in America, and that it might create two new political parties in a way that's never been done before. Because right now it looks like people are leaving the Democratic Party and the Republican Party. Now, right now, there's really nowhere else to go, so they're kind of in the center. But you've got the Libertarians that are kind of more central, and then Trump. I think he's trying to create his own political party, but in a subtle way. But a lot of people are going towards that way, and I believe they call themselves the Patriotic Party. And it kind of makes me hopeful because you know what, I'm a liberal, more of a classic liberal. Like I'm socially liberal but financially conservative, and I do believe that change is needed in this world. But I don't identify with Democrats. I don't identify with Republicans at all. And to me, it's always been two cheeks of the same ass. They're basically the same exact party. They just put on a pretty show for all of us to make us think we actually have a choice. And I'm hoping that within the next 4 years, the Democrats and Republicans lose their power base and other political parties get a chance to really have a voice. But something that you said, Addy, a little bit ago, about re-election and all of that, I feel like that's what Biden is doing right now. Every action he takes right now is towards getting re-elected. Like with the Keystone Pipe, trying to put women in a position of power. I think he's just going to try to continue this loop of, I am there for women, which is probably a smart thing to do because in the United States, women represent the largest voting bloc. They represent about 51% of the population. So if he could get all of the women to vote for him, it wouldn't matter who men voted for.
I would counter that. I think that Biden has no idea what he's doing. I think that he's simply a puppet. And the fact that he promotes or that he wants to allow trans women in women's sport majorly pissed off the feminists already. So I don't think he really knows what he's doing, and I don't think that he will survive this term. I don't think that he could run for a second term. But I definitely think that the Democrats are trying to change the system even more so that the Republicans can never win. And they have a couple of plans how to do that. But Trump will, by the end of the week, Trump will speak at the Republicans conference, RNC, I think it's called. So he will be one of the main speakers. And I think the fight at the moment will be around the Republican Party. Will Trump take over the whole party? And will it become a populist Republican Party, or will Mitch McConnell and the cronies, so to speak, win? And I think Trump has a winning chance, and it's not the first time that parties have been co-opted by a parasite, so to speak. In that case, I would call Trump a parasite that I personally like a lot. Yeah, we will see.
Yeah, I feel that Biden stole the election. I know it's an unpopular view. I just feel it's the statistics are out of this world with the whole scenario that he got more votes than any president in history just online. I feel like that's corrupt and it's swept under the carpet by the media. I liked Philip's point about the Biden's cluelessness about the whole trans thing, but I also like Mad Cat's point about it's like two cheeks of the same ass. I don't know if I'm saying that right. He's trying to appease the feminists, he's trying to appease the trans community, he's trying to appease the black community, even though he's been accused of racism. I've seen a recent video, Officer Tatum, where he slipped up and said the N word. It was quite funny, but I think a lot of these politicians have it goes back to the age-old popularity contest, what the people want to hear so they can gain votes and popularity. feminist SJW ideology is selfish and irresponsible. It depends on denial, emotional appeal, and an inflated concept of personal self-worth. In Scotland, the feminist consent laws, even in the West, are to optimise the female sexual strategy. Consent should always be 100%. There's no doubt about that. I'm not going against that, but the grey area is designed to leverage the expected entitlement mentioned previously of Western women to support to the support and provisioning of men for no other reason than they were born female. Any deviation from this on the part of men is met with cultural backlash in any Western society designed to coerce men to accept the role of provisioning or providing that entitlement to women. When these social contingencies fail or become too obvious, the feminine imperative appeals to legal legislation to mandate men's compliance to women's social entitlement, like they did in Scotland with my case. And it's just mad when you can see that. And I'm not saying we see that because we're special or we know better. It's just frustrating when you see that. It's common sense. It also amounts to the social shaming men experience. Men's sexual imperative is shamed. I mean, I taught when I was teaching the dating stuff. I taught lad culture and to date only really attractive women and not to marry under Western laws and dating multiple women. But this imperative empowers women and LGBT sexual strategies to an extent, and makes clueless men accepting of their ideals. And if they're not accepting, if they are waking up or become red pill, then they will be held legally responsible. That is the state of affairs in Scotland. And the sexual strategy I speak of is like modern females act and date like men do, while men act and date like women from past eras, and that just isn't biologically possible. In my opinion, anyway, I think naturally that will just end in disaster.
Sorry.
Actually, you go, because I was going to ask another question, but what was your point?
I wanted to say something in regards to not Boris Johnson, but the Tories, because I personally find that Boris Johnson is incredibly weak and doesn't act like he's supposedly quite libertarian, but that's not what it feels like at all. He's very, very weak. But there are actually voices in the Tory party at the moment that actively work against the woke agenda, and I would like to name some of them. The equalities minister of all people, her name is Kami Badenoch, a young black woman, and she is very outspoken against things like critical race theory, Black Lives Matter, and she did a really, really good speech on the parliamentary debate on International Men's Day. There is another Tory, his name is Ben Bradley. He cares a lot about young white working class boys and that they are falling behind in education and in the job market. And he actually was the biggest voice in the International Men's Day debate. Overall, there is quite a lot happening in the UK at the moment from the Conservatives, from the Tories, unfortunately not from Boris Johnson, who should really be the spearhead of it.
I actually want to ask a question to Phillip and Addy, if that's okay, RPR.
Mm-hmm.
The question I have for you is I hear a lot about Phillip Davies from Mike Buchanan and Elizabeth Hobson, so I was wondering if either of you had an opinion on him.
Philip Davies, he is the veteran of the political men's rights movement. I would say he has been supporting the men's movement for quite a long time. I would say, though, that he's now more working behind the scenes, and he is people from the opposition and even some people in his own party don't fully support him. So sometimes when he wants to push a bill or something like that, he is I think that he's intentionally holding back and asking other people to bring the idea forward, so that certain other people not oppose it just because he has his name under it. But he did do a great job in the last couple of years or in the past. But I think he's slowly handing the baton over to the younger generation, like Ben Bradley and Kemi Badenoch, from my feeling.
Yeah, Philip Davies' work has been highlighted to me by Mike also, and I've heard of him, and I feel like he's come leaps and bounds and has made ground. But like Philip was saying, he has kind of dulled down a little bit with the action, and it's understandable. He's a politician, and if you're a politician and the uh, majority of people or the people that are elected are of a certain woke perspective, you have to dull down what you're saying and doing. There's also another politician in the UK called Nigel Farage that I think is ideal. Again, people think it's crazy that as a, and I'm using one of the wokest terminologies, person of colour, that I would support such a person. But it, if you want freedom of speech and you want to support non-contradiction, non-hypocrisy, then you have to support people that are saying things that are not in the populist view. Just because you're a person of colour doesn't mean that you should agree with men being demonised in favour of silly feminist ideals. It means that eventually, as a man of colour, you will be discriminated against. You shouldn't be against white men. White men have made a great contribution to society, and it's not a difficult thing to say. As a person of colour, I have many white men that are role models to me, that have taught me, and that are great friends, and that I look up to. And it's a shame when we, through politics, even through people of that racial background or a different racial background, demonize certain groups of people to gain popularity or to uh, get political clout. I think it's very dangerous and it's not productive towards society. We should be looking at where we help each other. Every culture has difficulties and negatives and positives, and we should be looking at it on a human level rather than on a race level or a gender level. And it's very unnerving that this is happening in the UK, but in Scotland it's more so, and it's quite ignorant. And yeah, it's like I said, it doesn't give you very much confidence in the political system in Scotland or the UK.
In regards to your question, I can't say much about per se. I do see that they do follow a certain agenda, which obviously is women are right, men are wrong. In certain countries, other countries, I can't really say. But based on just hearing all of you speak and based on the knowledge I've seen from the news and what's coming out, I would say there's an agenda that's being followed, and the focus should technically be help the people, focus on what's best for the country overall. But based on what I can see, that's not what's being followed. And until things improve, there's not much we can see that's gonna, I guess, improve the situation. Um, but that's my part on the political side of things. So I just had one last question, which was for everyone in the room. I will leave this open to everybody else. Just answer this question. in regards to New Zealand's Prime Minister Jacinda Ardern and Australian leader Scott Morrison, what are your thoughts on those two?
I don't know the particular political people of every country. I mean, I barely know Philip Davies and Boris Johnson. But I can comment on the political climate, at least on Australia, because that comes up a lot in my research. And when it comes, if I had to pick the worst countries that have the worst offenses, human right offenses against men, it would have to be India and Australia. As bad as things are other places in the world, it's like men pretty much do not exist in those places. That it's women and other, basically. So I can only imagine any politician out there in either of those countries, and I don't think you mentioned India. But as far as Australia, it's just more of the same. That we've got to give money to Clementine Ford, which I found funny that the government gave her money to write a book about how awful men are. And it's just, that's the only mindset they seem to have, is we need to prop women up as high as we can. Even if they kill a man, they're the most wonderful thing ever. So that's the only opinion I can really give about anyone specific.
Yeah, I'm not really too versed on Jacinda Ardern. I think that's how you say her name. I know that Nicola Sturgeon is fond of her. I remember she made some pro-Islam stuff about some sort of mosque shootings. Again, I'm not making a judgment on any religious group. I just have to say that it's the same feminist ideology. Feminists would have us believe the expanding definitions of social justice incorporated in law is an effort at equality. It's not. Everyone has the same rights in a country like Scotland or New Zealand or Australia or the States or Canada. The reality is this expanding of the definition is to consolidate and optimizing of the feminist and SJW leftist political view. Most men want to identify, like these most regular men and politicians want to identify with the feminine imperative to be seen as good guys. The real reason for doing so is to gain favour with women, to get either a pat on the back or bedroom fun. And biologically and psychologically, it doesn't work, but men think it does. They are the exact same clueless guys that are suckers for the feminist leftist blob to manipulate and use as their lackeys. And these guys, it's not just like a sad guy in his bedroom. These are guys in the police and government and education and corporations and legal circles, etc. Going back to when I was doing the dating stuff, I was making men aware of the conditioning and manipulation and raising awareness, not to be taken in by the deception. But the more men start to wake up to this and not comply with this in places like Scotland or New Zealand, because New Zealand and Australia are very progressive, as Mad Cat said. The more people like Nicola Sturgeon and Jacinda Ardern will legislate and mandate men to comply with it. It's another extension of the Western feminist ideal. But I agree with what Mad Cat said about Australia being quite aggressively feminist. I have friends that went to do dating and just stay in Australia, and they practice dating, and they lived there in a context where they were living a red pill life, if for lack of a better term, and they were vilified for this, and they faced quite strong opinions from feminists, whether that be in the media or just in the general public. So Australia does seem like it's quite aggressively feminist, but I have not been there. I'm just talking from hearing people that I'm close to speaking about their experiences from living in Australia.
Yeah, I haven't been to Australia or New Zealand, but I did hear that recently New Zealand, I think they pushed through the most radical abortion bill, as if I'm not mistaken, but these are just informations that I heard somewhere, so I could be wrong. And at the same time, Poland pushed through the most radical anti-abortion bill in the Western world. So it's quite interesting that in New Zealand it went pretty much, well, abortion up to the day of birth is okay, and in Poland, abortion isn't okay even if you have been raped. And I haven't looked at the bills specifically, but this seems to be the case. Two very extreme bills, and I think that shows that our society is becoming more and more polarized, and we see that all over the world. I think that the two sides, the more left-leaning side and the more conservative side, they can't speak to each other anymore, and I think it will divert more and more and more, and people have to decide if they're going to stand on the conservative side, on the male side, so to speak, or on the progressive side, on the female side. And I think that at one point it will lead to a, let's say, civil war that will go through the whole of society, through relationships, through parties, through everything. That's my prediction.
Yeah, I think Philip's spot on with that, and I don't know if we're going to see that anytime soon in our lifetime. I think that the feminist stuff and the SJW stuff might even continue for 50 to 100 years. I did hear about the stuff he was talking about in Poland. Philip's not shaking his head, and I like that because Philip's a smart guy, so he might know something I don't, and I hope he's right. I really do. But anything these days, it seems like anything that even marginally pro-masculine is vilified in mainstream media, in society. It's in Western society. It's an easy and preferred target because we are conditioned to see it as hated and incorrect from an SJW feminist perspective. Look at how Jordan Peterson, who was quite neutral and backed his statements up with numbers and research, but the stuff he was saying went against the woke mob's religion, and there was an absolute uproar. But if Philip, you could expand on the shaking of the head, because I would love to hear what you have to say.
Yeah, that was not a positive shaking of the head. I think that we're gonna see the destruction of our society in our lifetime. There are certain indicators. One of them is, for example, the destruction of gender norms. When previous societies collapsed, shortly before that, you usually would see the destruction of gender norms, and that's what we're seeing at the moment. I'm not saying that must be an indicator, but I think it is an indicator. And when there was recently an article that China is training their young men in school to be more masculine, and I think that our Western society is getting weaker and weaker and weaker, and I think it's due to social engineering. You can believe in conspiracy theories, and you can say that was planned decades and decades ago, that the educational system would make our countries weaker and weaker. I think there is a good argument for that. So I think we will either be taken over by other cultures that are stronger because they're more patriarchal or more stricter in their roles, or our society will just collapse because it falls into chaos. And you mentioned Jordan Peterson, order and chaos, and too much order can be bad, too much chaos can be bad. And I think we've been moving towards chaos for a very, very long time, and that's why you see the fighting back from conservative sides and from national and nationalistic sides, and there is a danger in that. If our society falls apart, then masculinity will come back, because if shit hits the fan, you need man, and you need man to be you need man to be man, and you need women to be women. I'm not saying I'm looking forward to that, because a lot of people will die. I would prefer it if we could prevent that from happening, but I don't know if we can. Chris?
I want to slightly disagree with you on that. I don't think that the signs that we're seeing right now is going to lead to the end of society. I think it's leading to a strengthening of society. And I know I'm in a minority of saying this. Many people I speak to within the movement feel that this is the beginning of the end. But for me, it feels more like things get worse before they get better. And what we've been seeing from feminism as a whole is doubling down on their rhetoric. The more that we show how horrible it is, the more they want to hold on to it as much as they can. I do share a lot of the concerns that you mentioned. I'm concerned for Germany and Japan right now, because within a few generations, they may no longer exist as countries, not because they're taken over by someone more powerful, but because the birth rates have dropped, the marriage rates have dropped. Even here in the United States, that is starting to become a concern, that 18-year-olds, there are many 18-year-olds who are not dating, not having sex, and if they're not doing those things, they're definitely not having children or getting married. So it is a concern across the board, but we are seeing things where it's showing that men are starting to be taken seriously in our society. In the United States, in 2014, there was the National Parents Organization or something like that. They did a report card of all 50 states when it comes to shared parenting. And it had an average rating of like a D minus. And there was only one state, Arizona, where I live, that had an A. In 2019, another state got an A, which was Arkansas, and the average was a C. So they went from a D to a C. It's a minor change, but we're starting to see that the world is starting to change to take men seriously. We've been seeing that women who report false allegations are now going to jail for it. And for me, looking at this, I think that this is a sign that within our lifetimes, maybe I'll be 99 years old, but within my lifetime, we're going to start seeing a more positive change.
I would hope that. The question is, I'm for equality before the law, but maybe, and that's a point where I have to criticize Jordan Peterson, because Jordan Peterson repeatedly said that only idiots would oppose equality of opportunity for men and women. And I was thinking about that, and I thought, well, who says that equality, economic equality, will have the best outcome for the strength of a society? I'm all for shared parenting. I want to be a very active father and all of that. But it's possible that if we make the gender roles more equal, that we become as a society weaker. And as long as we are not being attacked from the outside, that might be absolutely fine. But it's possible that we just can't defend ourselves anymore if our military becomes too weak, because it becomes too egalitarian, and instead of taking the strongest soldiers, we take the wokest soldiers.
And I think that has a lot of merit of what you're saying. We can look at the New York Fire Department, that feminists basically sued the fire department for $50 million for not having enough women on the force? Well, it's because many women don't want to be firefighters. So what the New York Fire Department had to do was lower the standards so more women could get in so they wouldn't be sued again. And that is a very big concern with the military and pretty much all aspects of society, that we have to lower the standards so that women and now trans people can be equal to men.
I mean, in my opinion, I think Hungary have it right. I feel like they had a recent legislation on the LGBT community. I have nothing against that community, and I don't wish to restrict that community in any way. I just feel like they have a more common sense response to feminism and to the leftist West agenda. To expand on what Phillip was saying with Jordan Peterson, yeah, he has his flaws, and he even said that in a interview a while back about PUAs are all psychopaths, and he does have mental blocks, and I mean he had like, an issue with drugs and whatnot, and I'm not having a pop at Jordan Peterson. He makes some great points. He's a very intelligent guy, but when it comes to his values, he doesn't account for false allegations like Mad Cat was talking about. And expanding on what Mad Cat's point was about men waking up and realizing that they have the potential to be something beyond the whole SJW agenda. The manosphere is it's non-racial. I mean, look at the panel we have here. It goes beyond religion, it goes beyond media and politics, and these are all areas that feminists and social justice warriors have utilized heavily. The manosphere isn't by any means it's still in a development phase. It's not the be all and end all, and there's a lot of infighting and there's many flaws to it, but it's a big social threat to these groups, these social justice groups, and it's a very valid entity that combats these social constructs, and it's almost like how the banks viewed unregulated cryptocurrency, but now they have to take notice and they can't deny it. I think it's very important that we all stick together, whether you be MGTOW. I hear guys, even in regarding men group, talking about MGTOWs and people putting down PUAs. Now, a lot of these theories aren't developed, and men are trying to find their ways. But I think the MRA side of things is very, it's very much, in my opinion, the most developed side of the manosphere. And the red pill side of things is getting there also. But again, infighting doesn't really help us. But I think that we need to come together and we need to spread awareness. We're a small percentage of people, and if we continue to speak and educate and each one teach one, it can only be to the benefit of men.
I would like to say something real quick about like the red pill part and MRA part. I'm an MRA, but I would say that in the men's rights side, there is a definite lack of masculinity. That's why I think the men's rights side and the red pill side have to, they should kind of work together sometimes or meet each other, and because you don't become a men's rights activist if you focus on your masculinity, really, because looking at men's rights has something to do with victimhood, unfortunately. You have to be open to the fact that you as a man can be a victim and that you deserve help. But if you're on the red pill side, it's pick yourself up on the bootstraps and like solve your own problems. Don't let the government solve problems for you. And like I work with both sides. I like both sides, and I listen to red pill people quite a lot. I love, for example, Jack Donovan as an inspirational speaker because I need a kick in the butt sometimes, and the men's rights side doesn't do that. But unfortunately, if men only look after themselves and a few of their brothers, the laws will not change. That's why we need the MRA side. We need men's rights activists because they actually try to get shit done. But I think it's the manosphere. I think it's people that look at masculinity that are best suited to save guys from committing suicide and best suited to build a brotherhood. The men's rights side, we can't build a brotherhood because they're broken. Most of them are broken. Where the red pill side, they try to heal and they try to say, come on guys, let's work together, become the best version of yourself. So sorry, rambling. That's why I think both sides are really needed and need to work together. And yeah, that's me.
I love your sentiment, and I guess I'm a little bit ignorant on this. I didn't really realize there was a difference between red pill and men's rights. To me, it was kind of all one and the same. So I apologize to anyone out there. I didn't understand the nuance, but it is a problem I do see, that one of the first things that we need to do in the men's movement, whether as MRAs or red pills or even MGTOW, and yes, I understand the whole MGTOW thing, but we need to come together as a community. And when I did ICMI for 2020, that was the thing I talked about. Not specifically coming together, but we got to get out there and start getting things done. And, do something that can benefit a wide range of us. And we probably already do something like that. But, it's understood that in society, something I always say, that if a girl is crying, then men and girls will come to her and help her out. And by girls, I do mean women, but can be any female. Men and women will come to help the woman who's crying. But if a man cries, everyone's going to avoid that man. And if they do pay attention to him, it's probably going to insult him. And what we need in this community, first and foremost, is to help each other out. And, shameless shilling, but regarding men is an avenue that is trying to do exactly that. Give a place for men to talk. Because if we can take care of each other, then no amount of attack from the feminist side is going to hurt us. We can become stronger and get change to occur.
Yeah, spot on, Madcat. What you said about the red pill community and MRA community, in your opinion, not being different is great. I think that's a good way to look at it, but it's the people in these communities that actually differentiate from each other and they put each other down. But if you look at these social justice warriors and these feminists, they see everyone in the same way. They see everyone as misogynists or rapists or perverts or promoting separatism. It's not that they see them as that, they label them as that. And the PUA community is no longer PUA, they call themselves dating, but they still are the PUA community. And I think that we need to look at our communities in the way where we're doing a lot of infighting. There's a lot of infighting in the red pill community with dating coaches and amongst MGTOWs and males' rights activists, and we need to bring that together and dial it in. And it's our responsibility, and there is immaturity on our part, and that's why feminists have the edge. They already have the edge through all the political people that we talked about, the legislation and whatnot. But if we keep separating each other and infighting, it just gives them the advantage, and we need all the help we can get. We're not in a position to infight. We're not in a position to have egos and try and say, well, my product's better than yours or my movement's better than yours. It's not about that. It's about that we all have movements and we're all fighting towards the same goal, or we should be. And we should come together and see it as something that we want to do to help men and women and children and the human race go forward in a positive manner rather than go forward in an idiotic social justice manner that is just not helping us as a human race, regardless of your colour, regardless of your gender, regardless of your political ideology. And I think that it will grow, but it's stagnated because of the amount of immaturity. And you would be shocked at the level of infighting, because it's people that are quite influential, people that are followed by many people. Sometimes when I see the infighting, it's astonishing. I'm like, you should be collaborating or even just staying quiet. Like, let that man talk, let that man have his opinion, and maybe come together or have a discussion offline. I think egos get involved, and it's not healthy for this movement. Yeah, so that's my take on it.
Well, yeah, I think I see. For me, the problem in some regards is bitching. And I think what we need is more masculinity, even amongst the people that pretend to be like very masculine. When they bitch about other guys that pretend to be very masculine, I feel like being in a gay dark room. Where they're like, oh yeah, I've got a lot of muscles. Well, you're still a bottom. I think that what we need is respect, because like even with pickup artists, well, I don't really follow the pickup artistry, but they have certain skills, and if they are being used in a positive and a good way, well, respect. If a MGTOW guy teaches guys to be self-sufficient, respect to that. If an MRA tries to change laws so that fathers have equal access to their children, respect to that. These are all facets of helping man, and just because you help man in one way doesn't mean you should disrespect somebody else who helps man in a different way, because I mean there are so many different needs that different men have, and also men are at different points in their life. At one point somebody might need the help of the incel community, and then a couple of months later or a year later you grow out of that and you might go over to MGTOW, and a couple of years later you're a TradCon, you have 3 children, go to church every Sunday, and are incredibly happy, and are a libertarian. And we have seen people, for example, in the pickup movement, there are people, Rush V, for example, who used to be, I hope I don't misrepresent him, but he used to be a pickup artist, and now he's a complete TradCon, very religious, and there needs to be space for that. And I don't like it that people shit on him just because he changed his path. That's
Yeah.
it.
Well, if I'm married with
Yep.
3 kids, I give you permission to shoot me in the head.
Why is that, Mad Cat? Why?
Because I'm married. That's horrible. No, I'm just kidding. I'm just kidding, man.
Yeah, but going on what Philip's saying, it's great the point that he made. It's like you can advance from PUA or dating coach to MRA, which I've done, or Red Pill, in your perspective, or Christian, or Muslim, or Jewish if you want, traditional conservative if you want. That should be the option we have in this male space. It should be you're helping people at different stages of their life. So if you're a young guy and you want to meet women, or you're a divorced guy that's back on the dating market and you want to meet women, okay, the dating coach stuff is applicable. If you're a guy that is concentrating on his finances, or his personal growth, you're going towards the MGTOW side of things. If you want to expand your knowledge on the laws and political stance of the rights you have as a man, or the rights you don't have as a man, Red Pill stuff is great for intersexual dynamics, and the men's rights stuff is great if you have been a victim of false allegations or paternity fraud or divorce, rape. We should have this flexible structure that helps men. That should be the reasoning for this whole movement, because they see us as the same. So there's beef and these issues that we have between us isn't productive at all, and that's, I think, in my opinion, that's what stagnates the manosphere. And it's not a critical position that I'm taking in the way where I know better. I'm just saying that it is inevitable. It's human nature. It's male competitiveness. But until we get over that, we're not going to expand, and we're not going to make the impact we need to make amongst ourselves. But at the same time, the impact is significant. I love Phillip's movement, United for Men. I love the movement Mad Cat is attached to. I'm a part of it also. I attend a lot of meetings for Regarding for Men. I love Mike Buchanan and Elizabeth Hobson's movement, the Justice for Men and Boys and the Women They Love. I think these are very positive movements. Is there ignorance in our sphere? Yeah, there is. There is ignorance, and there is room for improvement in the male space. There's MGTOWs and incels and black pill guys. I think they need to go through that, and I really hope that they get through or over that hurdle of that stage. But there's always going to be casualties and people that just stay in a certain position. But I love this space, and it's demonized. It is totally demonized and painted as something misogynistic, but it's not. It helps. Back to Mad Cat's point about marriage. If you get married in a Western context with a contract with the government, yeah, it's negative, but there's other ways to do it. There's Christian marriages or Islamic marriages or African tribal marriages. I know it doesn't apply to everyone, but I'm just saying that this is with a context of government marriage. But it just depends on your definition of what you want at a certain time.
And I have to, in regards to marriage, so I started speaking to a girl from Botswana a couple of months ago now, months ago, and I met her on a Christian dating app, and what we talk about is how we will raise our children, what marriage means to us, and I definitely want to get married. I definitely want to have children, and I'm aware of the dangers. But I know it's the best outcome it can be the best outcome for a man, for a woman, and for children most of all. And I want the best outcome for children. I know it is a risky game, especially with the government being involved. But if it works, the outcome can be incredible. And I'm not afraid of it. Well, no, that's a lie. That's a complete lie. I'm terrified of it. I'm absolutely terrified. Like, for me, the biggest fear is that my children would be taken away from me. That is my biggest fear. And that is probably the only thing that could destroy me. I'm a very strong person, but that would probably destroy me. But not having children and not having children with a woman that I love and that I want to be together with till the day I die, that would be the bigger loss for me, not trying.
Well, I 100% support you wanting to get married, and I really, really hope that it works out. I always wanted to get married, and I'm 40 now, and the likelihood of that is slim. And even if I do, the likelihood that I'll have children is slim, even though I want both. And you're right, it is a very big risk. And it sounds like you're just mostly talking online for now. And I hope that who she represents herself online is also the person she is in person. And I don't want to take away from that at all. But oftentimes, what I see is it's when you're engaged and you're getting ready to get married, do you truly meet the person you're going to be with? And I give a quote by Paul Elam, that the most powerful thing that you could ever say to a woman you love is no. Just tell her no. Like she says, hey, let's go out to eat. You say no. And see how she reacts, because that will tell you everything you need to know about her. And it's not to be mean or cruel. It's to see, can she handle you having a voice in the relationship? Can she handle dividing the power with you? Because if she overreacts and goes crazy, it tells you that she won't ever fully respect you. But if she can say, okay, you don't want to do that, that's fine, that's probably a keeper.
I was gay till I was 32, and because of that, women don't get a pussy pass from me. I'm kind of immune to that. So if a woman tries any shit tests or something, I immediately block. So so I would say I'm far less in danger than most men. I'm not controlled. I'm not controlled by my dick. I'm 43 years old now. I don't like. I I I haven't had sex in a very long time. I don't need it, and a woman can't use it against me. So, and I look very closely at a person's character. And in regards, for example, to the girl that I'm chatting with, she works in the social sector. She helps people that go through problems, and the way she talks, and for example, she talks quite a bit about guys that she works with that faced false allegations and stuff like that. And wow, she's like, that woman needs to go to jail now. So she surprisingly enough, she's all about equality, like proper equality, not that feminist equality. Will she be perfect? No, nobody is perfect, and you can't expect that. Does she have a good heart? Yes, she does. Do I have to fight for my place? Absolutely. But that's on me. And that's exactly when you said, pardon?
And does she have a sister?
Yes, but she's married. And she sounds very complicated. Honestly, I tried Tinder for a long time, and I tried European women quite often, and it did not work, because even the ones that wanted a family wanted a career at the same time, and there was just too much feminism going on. When I started talking to her, she was like, just to let you know, I want children. I want to look after the children. I want to stay at home. I want to work at home, but I want to look after the children, and I want you to be an involved father. And I'm like, sounds amazing. That's what I want.
Yeah, that type of female is traditionally Christian or traditionally Islamic or Jewish, and power to Philip. I feel like what Mad Cat was saying about he might not have children at the age of 40 plus. I mean, we are able to have children at any time. I'm coming up 40, and I've sired 3 children at this time, and most recently in this year of 39. I think that if you're RP aware, if you're red pill aware, it helps you, and you have to be in the right place. Philip is right in the fact that in a certain country or a certain demographic, you can't meet those women. It's quite hard to meet those women. But if they have a certain religious background or a religious leaning, or a conservative type outlook, yeah, it's a lot better. And if you are red pill aware, or you are aware of your masculine traits being an advantage to you, you will get better results with women. You just have to put yourself out there with the right woman and be in the right place. I don't feel like when Mad Cat said dividing the power with women, I don't feel like it's that's the factor in being attractive to women. I think that women don't want to divide the power, and I'm not saying this in a misogynistic level. I feel like women want to be in your life, on your program, as your assistant, as your helper and supporter, and they want guidance, and they want you to be the guiding influence in their life. They want you to handle the finances. I know in the situation I'm in, I don't manipulate or cheat or con the female that I'm with out of any money on a moral level, because of the knowledge I've gained from growing up and the mistakes I've made and corrected. And red pill awareness, I feel like the female I'm with wants my guidance and is on my program, and I feel like I have to guide her right, and it's my responsibility to guide her right. But I'm the leader in that situation, and I feel like there's guys like Abu American. He's a Muslim guy, African American Muslim guy, and he has like 2 or 3 wives, and that's his situation, and that's how he lives his life, and he is the leader in that situation. I don't think dividing power with women is good. I think that you should have the majority of the influence in the situation. It's not a manipulating thing. It's more about you leading and being the masculine influence that has that logic that we spoke about, that can influence things in the right way, rather than the emotionalism that reacts instantaneously to situations that are better handled logically.
But you have to earn that respect. The thing is, you can't expect your wife to respect you if you don't accomplish anything, or if you are not respectable. It's the same with other men. Other men will only respect you if you actually bring something to the table. Yeah. What do you think about that, Addy?
Yeah, totally. You can't be a useless human being in order to have any type of masculine polarity. You have to have a vision, leadership, and a assuredness in going forward with your finances, with your mentality, with your financial well-being, with your physical health, and these are all aspects that men should handle before they get into a relationship. And that's what I used to teach also. But it's more dialed in now that I'm doing the men's rights advocate activism side of things. I feel like the PUA and the dating coach side of things is quite irresponsible and a little bit naive to the whole the feminist and SJW politics we spoke about earlier on. I think the MGTOW is a little bit too separatist towards women, because at the end of the day, to create more men, to create more human beings, we need women. Women aren't our enemy. It's just a opposition to human development that this whole feminist narrative has to males and females. Some of these females that are influenced by feminism are ignorant. They don't have religion. They don't have Christianity. They don't have Islam. They don't have Judaism. They are influenced by a religion that is feminism, that is online, that is Twitter, that is OnlyFans, that is Facebook, IG, whatever. And the lack of religion and the lack of morality has led us to this new religion, this new wokeism and emotionalism, and this political agenda. And politicians will exploit that. People are stupid. They will follow that, especially if they don't have any other type of morality to follow. I think that men need to wake up. And it's hard because you're fighting against 80% of male perspectives that are beta, that are blue pill, for lack of a better term. And they will never wake up. They've always been conditioned. They've always been that way inclined. And it's a difficult battle, but we must plow on, and we must go forward with this. It's a responsibility. If you are aware and you see it for what it is, you must go forward, and you must try and help men and women and children to progress forward. It's our responsibility, in my opinion.
I want to say very quick, very quick. My girl from Botswana, she told me something about the Christian vows when you get married, and it says man love your woman, and woman respect your husband. So, and I found that incredibly wise, because women want to be loved, men need to be respected. It's what we really need. It's our deepest wish. Of course, men want to be loved as well, and women want to be respected as well. But the bigger urge for men is to feel respected, and for women to feel loved. Chris.
So, a couple of things to add to that. I'm hoping that you're not really saying this, Addy. Kind of sounds like you are, but I want to give you the benefit of the doubt that maybe I'm misunderstanding, because it sounds like what you're saying is that the only way to have morality and happiness with a woman is to be religious. And I'm an atheist, so I don't really agree with that point. So I hope I'm just misunderstanding your point on that. But a thing that I think you're also talking about male emancipation. Now, women have had their emancipation. They've had the right to say we can be whoever we want, whenever we want. And yet there's this expectation that men still exist in the 1950s, that we still have to be the breadwinner, we still have to sacrifice ourselves for women. And that's the only value we can ever have. And I really want to start pushing this idea of a male emancipation, where we can say to men or boys growing up to be men, focus on yourself. Do what makes you feel good. Don't let women define what makes you a man. You know, because one of the problems we have is men think, oh, well, I need to get married, so I'll get married early. And instead of taking the jobs that they want to take, they have to focus on the jobs that earn them the most money. So they might stay in the job for a very long time that they hate because it puts food on the table, puts a roof over their head, and what they want doesn't matter. And we need to change that thinking that what men want does matter. And that you pursue the career you want. You become the person you want. Because when you are at the place, when you are your best self, then you can draw the right woman to you.
Can I ask you something, Chris? Do you think that emancipation served women well? Are women happier now?
That is a complicated question. That is not something that I can answer with a yes or a no. In fact, I would probably answer with both a yes and no. Overall, has it served women? I think it has allowed society to look at women in a different way. Some good, some bad. I think it's kind of like a boulder rolling downhill. At first, it was small and tolerable, but then as it continued down, it got a lot worse. I think feminism has really taken advantage of, the Equal Pay Act of 1963. From there, they just kept wanting more and more and more and more, to the point that they have everything they want and still claiming they have nothing. So I think that it did do some good, but I think it ultimately led to a lot of bad things.
I think that there was a strong movement for more rights and less responsibilities, or less boundaries. And I think what I see in parts of the red pill movement is actually for men to take more responsibilities, get a good job, look after yourself, become the best version of yourself. And then next to that, the tradcon part, the traditional conservatives that say, take responsibility for your family, for your children, and stuff like that. And I would say, and I'm going to answer my views to the question that you asked Addy about Christianity, if you can have a moral relationship without religion. I think you can, but I think it's going to be very, very hard because you have to construct your own morals, and who's going to hold you accountable to the morals that you created, because you can also change them. And to find a woman who sticks to the same morals that you created and that she created might be quite difficult. I used to be very liberal, and I become more and more conservative and socially conservative. And I believed in a lot of the things that you are talking about, and I'm moving more and more away from that from a personal perspective, because I couldn't find happiness and I couldn't find a relationship with these liberal views. And I'm like, it seems like it's easier to find happiness with more conservative traditional views, but I might be wrong. Addy, want to say something?
Yeah, in accordance with the question that Chris asked, he made a great point, and he was right in the way that his atheist outlook on the matters that we discussed helps him and suits him well. And I wasn't suggesting that religion was a imperative thing for women in order for you to date them or to marry them. But the thing is that Chris is an atheist, and he's red pill aware. he is a smart, intelligent person that looked at the situation and thought, do I go with the social justice narrative or do I go with the red pill and scientific backed up narrative? The majority of males aren't as open-minded. They will go with the popular narrative that is being pushed on them. They will go with feminism and SJW if they are atheists. And the same goes for females. So atheism is nothing to look down upon if you are an intelligent, open-minded person that can look at red pill and scientific arguments and theory and can make a decision informatively on that basis. But most people don't do that, and that's where religion plays a good part in choosing a partner, because religion, in Islam, they look at science, and Islam comes from Christianity and it comes from Judaism. Christianity looks at beyond rituals of religious retribution, like I'll do this many prayers and get to heaven. Christianity looks at the basis of being a good person and having better morals. I'm more Christian leaning than Islam leaning, and there's no disrespect to either religion. I just feel like Christianity speaks to me more. I'm not saying that I'm that way inclined. I just feel like it is a more common sense approach to things. So there's certain things that I do question about it. I don't think it's 100%. Again, no disrespect to any Christians, but the atheism side of things is practical if you are a person that has this niche common sense aspect to your personality or your intelligence. The majority of females that I speak to aren't like that. They're indoctrined in feminism or thought culture. The female that I'm with at the moment is a conservative religious female that has never drank or smoked or took drugs or has tattoos, and that suits me because she's very feminine and is great. It's not even an effort to be with her. To be masculine to her feminine is a very natural thing, and she appreciates that, and I appreciate that, and it's a very complementary, natural coming together of the both elements. And it does come from me being RP aware, but I do need a higher power. I do believe in a higher power. I don't know what it is. I can't define it as God. I can't define it as some sort of religious experience, but I do think that our existence is beyond the human understanding, because scientifically we only use I think it's about 5 or 10% of our brains. I mean, I'm open to discussion and even objection to what I'm saying right now. But I believe there's something bigger than us, and I do believe we're very ape-like creatures. We're not too far away from chimpanzees, but we are brilliant. Look at the social constructs we've created. Look at the inventions like automobiles and the internet, and these are just two things off the top of my head that we've created. We are brilliant creatures, and we have consciousness. But yeah, there's certain aspects to religious types of people. And it makes me think that these people weren't stupid. They had ethics. They talk about homosexuality. They talk about male and female dynamics. They talk about morality. They talk about how to live in a general way. And I feel like they didn't have the silliness going on with the SJW narrative that we have these days. And that's why I respect it. I feel like it's more common sense than the current modern narratives that we have going on at the moment. But again, I can't dispel what Chris was saying. I think that he's an intelligent man that is able to have an open mind, but I don't feel like everyone is like him.
Unfortunately, I have to agree with you, Addy. As much as I hate to, because that really says something about atheists as a whole, but many of the atheists I have seen throughout my life tend to be more on the social justice warrior side and less on the red pill side. And prime evidence of this was Atheism Plus, where originally it just started off as trying to bring atheists together, but then feminism infested it, and that's all it became. It became synonymous, the same thing as feminism. I can't speak. By the way, there is a higher power, and it's Paul Elam. But there are a number of atheists within the manosphere, within the red pills and MGTOW and men's rights. There are of us out there. I swear I can speak. There are atheists in this movement who are very passionate about what we're doing, and we kind of fall back on the morals of humanism. And I know that kind of is a dirty word in some circles, but it's just about treating each other right and about doing the right thing when the opportunity is presented to us. And I think many of us within the men's movement who are atheists are very much like that. So I have utmost respect for anyone of all of their faith and their creeds and what have you. But sometimes I get a little concerned that at times it seems like there's more focus on we need to be religious versus we accept everyone. And this is a problem I have with the Republican Party as well in America. They're so focused, you have to be Christian in order to be a patriot. This is what Candace Owens has said. I like Candace Owens, but when she said that, I'm like, you're an idiot, because there are a lot of atheists who would love to be Republicans, but you basically made it a Christian-only party. And I'm not saying that either of you have made me feel like I'm not welcomed, but sometimes I just kind of get the little sense out there that being Christian is kind of necessary to be red pilled.
Two things. First of all, I can I can say with sadness that feminism has infested Christianity like a cancer. When you look at the Protestant church, it's really, really bad. And even in the Catholic Church, it's starting now. There are counter movements, kind of anti-woke churches, but they are few and far between. So that's one point. The next point, I think what you need is structure. And I would assume that what Candace Owens is talking about, and I'm putting words in her mouth now, that she isn't even aware of probably, it's cultural Christianity. Because the Western cultures, the Western countries are built on Christian values. I'm not the most Christian person. To be honest, I don't really care if Jesus existed. I don't. But I'm a very strong believer in God, so I have like a feeling inside me that I just can't get rid, and that's a connection to God. So I can't be an atheist, but I don't care about a lot of the stories from Christianity. But I think that if we want our countries to survive, we have to fight for our culture. And our culture is founded in Christianity. And I think that there are a lot of cultural Jews, but not religious Jews. I think it's important to be culturally Christian without necessarily being religiously Christian. Does that make sense?
It does make sense, and I do agree with... Sorry, Addy. I'll be real quick. I do agree with you that I am culturally Christian. It has led to our society allowing atheists to happen, being able to be here. Because, if we were in England during the Church of England before America became a country, we probably would have been stoned to death. There's many religions where they don't like you not believing. And thanks to Christianity, it has led to many people being able to express themselves. So I do recognize that. So I would say that I am culturally Christian, but it's not the first thing I would say about myself. I recognize it, but I'm just me. I'm an American, and I'm an atheist, and I wear that with a lot of pride. But I won't deny the history that led to now that allows me to say that without persecution.
I feel like your stance on atheism is an intelligent one, because I wouldn't really typecast myself to a particular religion. I would feel like, rather than being atheist, I'm more agnostic. I do believe in God, but I don't adhere to a particular religious ideology. And I define God as a higher power, a universal being, a artificial, not an artificial, but an all-knowing intelligence that we can't define mentally as human beings. Islam can be very good in the way that it's good for discipline, and the ritualistic aspect of it is very restrictive when it comes to doing deviant and idiotic actions. However, it does have the counter effect of people just rejecting it and going in the opposite direction. And it has a recent terrorist aspect to it, where people are using that ideology to commit atrocities against people of different races and religions, which I don't agree with, and I think that's what we need to address. It also has a cancel culture aspect to it, where you can't talk about um, prophets and historical figures like Muhammad or Jesus or Moses or Abraham, which all exist in the Bible, but Muslims seem to be very extreme in that manner, where there's no discussion. And I'm not having a go at Muslims. I'm just saying that we should be able to discuss these factors um, and not take offence to them in the same manner that social justice warriors do. Christianity is good in the aspect of, like I said, it dispels a lot of ritualistic things, not Catholicism, but just maybe Protestant Christians. And like Philip was saying, Judaism can be quite separatist and controlling, because they have a stronghold on media and finance, especially in the States. I don't adhere to any of these religious indoctrinations, but I've studied Christianity, and I've studied Islam, and I've studied Judaism, and I have had benefits from these, more so than the aspects of social justice and feminism. And when I go and study red pill stuff, I love it. I think it's helpful, but the holes in that ideology also, not because it's wrong. The evolutionary, biological, and psychological side is right, because it's based on science, but the infighting, the modern takes on stuff like we're having today can have certain, if you like, unresolved issues to it, or we're not conclusive in our diagnosis of it. And I feel like the religious stuff can help, or the spiritual stuff can help. But I think that whatever ideology helps you, as long as it's not this social justice emotionalism, that is helpful. That is healthy, in my opinion.
I
Well,
think that kind
thanks
of like
guys for the show.
nothing more needs to be said.
Yeah, that is true. That does wrap up the show again. Thanks a lot, guys, for joining in. I've sent the link to the YouTube channel on the chat, so if you want, you can just follow that on there. Anybody else want to add anything else? All good?
All good. Thank you for having me. Shout out to Philip. Shout out to Madcat. Shout out to you. Thank you for having me on.
Thank you
Thanks
so
so
much
much,
for the
guys.
invitation. It was a surprise, and a very welcome surprise. Thanks a lot.
No problem. Thank you so
And
much
thank
for
you.
joining us today. Bye.
I always want to say thank you. Just I'll be real quick. Thank you.
Yeah.